They celebrated my death right there in the delivery room. My husband's mistress wearing my wedding dress, my mother-in-law choosing which baby to keep. But their faces went pale when people say hearing is the last sense to leave you before you die. They say it like it's a comfort, a final thread connecting you to the world you're about to leave behind. They were wrong. It isn't a comfort, it's a curse. My name is Elena Moreno, and this is my story. It all began in the delivery room at Miami Medical Center. The room was blindingly white, the glossy wall tiles, stainless steel gleaming like teeth, and lights that left no shadow where fear could hide. I had been in labor for 14 hours. The pain was no longer waves. It was an ocean, dark and crushing, pulling me under every time I tried to breathe. "Deep breaths, Elena. Keep the rhythm," Dr. Vargas said. Her voice was steady, professional, the voice of a woman who had witnessed life enter the world thousands of times. "You're doing great." I wasn't okay. I was falling apart. I turned my head, sweat stinging my eyes, searching for the one thing that should have been my anchor. My husband, Daniel Moreno. We had been married for 5 years. We had built a home, a life, a future. I needed his hand. I needed his eyes on mine. I needed him to say the words that would soften this pain. But Daniel wasn't looking at me. He stood in the far corner of the room, his face lit by the pale, sickly glow of a smartphone. His thumb moved across the screen with frantic intensity. Swipe, tap, swipe, tap. He wasn't pacing with worry. He wasn't wringing his hands in fear. He was texting. Maybe he was updating my parents, I told myself. Maybe he was scared and trying to distract himself. But even through the fog of pain, my gut twisted. There was no fear in his posture, only calculation. Then suddenly, the pressure in my chest changed. Not the baby. Me. A sharp, icy claw clenched around my heart. The steady beep of the heart monitor stuttered, skipped, then surged into a shrill, frantic alarm. "Blood pressure is dropping fast," a nurse shouted. The calm shattered. "Elena, try to stay calm," Dr. Vargas ordered, her face suddenly right in front of mine, eyes wide and serious. "Airway pressure is falling. Get the crash cart." Dr. Vargas turned to Daniel, her voice decisive. "We need your signature. She's crashing. We have to intervene now." I heard the sound of papers being pulled from the file. I tried to tilt my head toward him. I wanted to see him. I needed to see panic on my husband's face. I needed to see some sign that he was afraid of losing me. But Daniel didn't sign right away. There was a very brief pause, just a few seconds. But in a room filled with machines and ragged breathing, it stretched like a crack. "Wait," he said. His voice was terrifyingly calm. "If I sign this, will it affect the insurance?" The room stalled. Dr. Vargas looked at him, her gaze turning cold. "Mr. Moreno," she said slowly, "your wife is in critical condition. This is not the time to talk about money." "I'm just asking for clarity," Daniel replied, giving a small shrug. "I need to know all the legal consequences." A young nurse standing nearby, I didn't know her name then, froze while adjusting the IV line. She looked up at Daniel. Not the look of a medical professional at a patient's family member, but the look of someone who had just heard something wrong. Her eyes lingered on his face longer than necessary. Then she turned to me. In that moment, in the middle of the pain crushing my chest, I had a strange feeling that someone in this room was seeing something I hadn't yet understood. Dr. Vargas shoved the papers closer. "Sign it." "Now," she said, giving him no more time. Finally, Daniel signed his name. The room collapsed into a blur of frantic motion. Colors bled together. The rush of blood in my ears sounded like a train roaring past. I felt myself slipping, sliding down a long, dark tunnel. And in that final second, before the darkness swallowed me completely, the sounds in the room became sharper. I heard metal clatter. I heard the ripping sound of Velcro being torn open, and I heard Daniel's voice. He didn't shout my name. He didn't drop his phone. He asked one question, his voice flat, cold, and utterly without panic. Is it over? Not, is my wife okay? Or, is the baby okay? And not, save her, just, is it over? And then, the entire world went still. I don't know how long I drifted in that formless void. Time doesn't exist when you're not really there. It might have been only minutes. It might have been years. It was a vast, pitch-black ocean, perfectly still. Then sound returned. At first, it was just a faint hum, vibrating across the floor of my mind. Then the squeak of rubber wheels rolling over vinyl flooring. The steady, distant whir of ventilation fans. I tried to open my eyes. Nothing happened. I tried to move a finger. Still nothing. I tried to scream, "I'm here! I'm here!" The scream echoed inside my head, loud and desperate, but my lips didn't move. My lungs didn't expand on command. I was a prisoner inside my own body. "Time of death," a tired voice began. "No!" I screamed silently. "I'm not dead!" Then, an icy sensation on my chest. "Wait!" A second voice cut in, sharp, urgent. "I see rapid cardiac activity. Look at this monitor." "That's residual," the first voice dismissed. "No, that's a heartbeat. She hasn't gone. She's still in critical condition." Chaos returned, but this time from a distance. Orders were shouted. Fluids were pushed. I felt life support machinery being connected. Tubes invading my throat. Needles piercing my veins. I felt all of it. Every jab, every intrusion. But I couldn't move. Hours later, the room settled into the particular quiet of the intensive care unit. The air carried the faint smell of antiseptic and stale coffee. "Elena, if you can hear me," a male voice said. It was Dr. Ortega, the neurologist. "You're in a deep coma, possibly locked-in syndrome. We're doing everything we can." I heard him speak, and I tried with everything I had to speak back. "Please tell Daniel I'm here." As if summoned, the heavy door swung open. Footsteps approached. Heavy footsteps, confident ones. "Mr. Moreno," Dr. Ortega said. "She's stable on life support, but her brain activity is very weak. She's not responsive." "How long?" Daniel asked. His voice didn't tremble, didn't carry the panic of a husband watching his wife fail to wake up. It was the same tone he used when asking a contractor how long the kitchen renovation would take. "It's impossible to predict," the doctor replied. "It could be days. It could be years." "And what about the cost?" Daniel asked immediately. A pause. A thick, judgment-laden silence from the doctor. "Intensive care is critical, Mr. Moreno. However, typically, after 30 days of non-responsiveness, families begin discussing transferring the patient to long-term care facilities or other options." Daniel exhaled. A long, relieved breath. 30 days. All right, I need to make a few calls. He didn't touch my hand. He didn't kiss my forehead. He turned and walked out, leaving me alone with the terrifying rhythm of the machine breathing for me. Time passed without clear days or nights. Only the sound of the ventilator and voices that increasingly no longer treated me as a human being. More people entered the room. I didn't hear the door open, only voices. Bare voices, no longer meant for the living. "I'm not sure," a young male voice said. Still green, still hesitant. "These readings, they don't look like a complete coma. Her heart rate changes when we talk. I think the patient may still be conscious." I clung to that sentence, like a lifebuoy. A brief silence. Then another voice spoke, deeper, colder, more exhausted. "You're imagining things. Don't complicate this." "But if she can hear—" "No," the other voice cut in. "She can't hear anything." I wanted to scream. "I can hear. I can hear every single word." "The patient's family has already been counseled," the older doctor continued, lowering his voice. "We just need to follow protocol." I heard the sound of papers being folded, a chair scraping back, then another voice, softer, almost a whisper. Carmen Moreno called me this morning. My mother-in-law. What did she say? The silence afterward was so thick it felt like it was suffocating me. She said, she doesn't want us giving false hope. No one objected. No one asked anything further. The young doctor fell silent. I heard his footsteps leaving the room. Light, quick, as if he didn't want to stay in this room any longer. I was left behind. Then came the things they did to me. They washed my body. A warm cloth moved slowly over my skin, but I couldn't flinch, couldn't pull away, couldn't protect myself. My arm was lifted, turned to the side, like a fraying cloth doll. Someone talked about the night shift. Someone chuckled softly at a phone message. They changed my diaper. I felt every movement, every rushed, indifferent touch. I wanted to disappear from my own body. I wanted to truly die, rather than lie here, opened, wiped clean, closed again, while my consciousness remained intact. Turn the patient to the left, a voice ordered. They rolled me over, my cheek pressed into the pillow. I couldn't swallow, couldn't open my mouth. Tears ran from the corners of my eyes, soaking into the fabric. Just a reflex, someone said. Don't worry. No, that wasn't a reflex. It was humiliation. It was the truth that I was here, naked and aware, while the entire world had decided that I no longer existed. The next visitor brought a scent I knew all too well. Chanel No. 5 and Judgment. Carmen Moreno, my mother-in-law. A woman who wore piety like an outfit but carried the soul of a shark. She didn't walk, she marched. I heard her heels clicking against the floor, like a countdown clock to my end. So, she said. Her voice wasn't gentle, it was loud, echoing off the walls. She's basically a vegetable now. We prefer not to use that term, Dr. Ortega said, his patience clearly thinning. Call it whatever you want, doctor. She's just an empty shell, Carmen snapped. My son is falling apart. He has to raise a newborn on his own. We need to be realistic. How long are we supposed to keep this charade going before we stop bleeding money? I'm here, Carmen. I'm the baby's mother. Hospital legal and ethical procedures require a waiting period, the doctor explained stiffly. 30 days is the standard observation window for this level of trauma. 30 days, Carmen repeated. I could almost hear her calculating. So 24 left. Fine. That can be managed. She stepped closer to the bed. I felt her hand touch my hair. Not gently, but appraising the texture, like she was checking the upholstery on a sofa she planned to sell. Rest, Elena, she whispered, her voice dripping with a sweet cruelty. Don't worry about a thing. We'll take care of everything. She walked out, and the air in the room seemed lighter without her. But her words stayed behind, hanging over me like a guillotine blade. 24 days. I'd already been here 6. I began to notice a pattern around day 10. Every time they visited, they brought flowers. Not just any flowers. White roses. I knew when a nurse muttered about the color in the room. Those are the flowers people place beside coffins. Flowers for the dead. Flowers for goodbyes already planned. Daniel always set them on the small table beside my bed. Carefully. Neatly. Like a ritual. To make the room less cold, he told the nurse, as if it were an explanation. He didn't come close to me, didn't touch me. He just came and stood at a distance. Carmen was different. After placing the flowers, she stepped forward, studying me, not like a person, but like an installation that was nearly complete. Each new bouquet was another rehearsal for my absence. You learn a lot about people when they start treating you like an object. They stop hiding their feelings. They take off their masks. Today was day 12. A nurse had left the baby monitor on the table near my bed. The idea was so I could hear my daughter in the nursery, a kindness I deeply appreciated. But someone had moved the other receiver. It was no longer in the nursery. It was in the private family waiting room at the end of the hall. Static crackled, then voices came through. Clear as crystal. Honestly, everything is perfect, Daniel. Don't be so gloomy. Carmen's voice cut through the interference. She's my wife. She's my child's mother. It just feels wrong, Daniel said, but his voice sounded annoyed, not guilty. Right now, she's just a line item on an expense report, Carmen shot back. Look at the numbers. Once she's gone, the life insurance policy activates. Double indemnity because it's a medical accident. That's $3 million, Daniel. What about the house? His voice followed. Mine. Completely. We'll transfer the deed the day after the funeral, and Valeria can finally move in properly. She's waited long enough. My heart hammered like a trapped bird in my chest. Valeria Torres, Daniel's executive assistant, the woman who brought me soup when I had the flu, the woman who always smiled brightly and laughed a little too hard at Daniel's jokes. When a friend warned me about something off between her and my husband, I had defended her, said she was just helping him at work, that Daniel would never betray me, that I trusted his love. Valeria has already started asking about redecorating the nursery, Daniel said, his voice now openly smiling. She hates Elena's taste. Too tacky. You see? Carmen said softly. This is a fresh start, a blank page. We just have to wait. 18 more days. We'll have a small service, closed casket. We'll tell her parents the death was quick and peaceful. No drama at all. Then a third voice came in. Soft, sweet. Baby, are you done talking to the witch? Valeria. Almost done, Daniel said. I heard the rustle of fabric, the sound of a kiss. Just discussing the timeline. Good, Valeria giggled, because I really can't wait to be that baby's mother. My child. Rage is a powerful source of energy. If I could have moved, I would have ripped the IVs from my arms and strangled every last one of them. But I couldn't. I lay there, forcing my heart to keep beating, forcing my brain to memorize every word. When the nurse wiped tears from my face later that day, she called it a reflex. But it wasn't a reflex. It was pain. And it was in that pain that the memories I had deliberately ignored began to come back, with brutal clarity. I remembered Valeria, the woman who was quick-witted, magnetic, who always knew how to light up a room when she walked in. I had believed she had her own invisible boundaries, because I trusted her, just as I trusted my husband. I remembered one time, over cocktails, when she laughed and half-joked that if she were going to give her life to someone, he'd better be brilliant, rich, or at least obsessed with her, preferably all three. I laughed back then. I shouldn't have. Valeria wasn't just my husband's assistant. She slowly became my friend, or at least someone I thought was my friend. She showed up more than any of my other friends. She had an open invitation to our house, and she used it fully. Late-night wine drop-ins, stretching out to watch The Crown with me in pajamas, helping me rearrange things, or criticizing how I arranged flowers. She had a key to my house. My house. At first, I felt warmth in that. I believed we were building something sacred, a life full of deep friendships, warm spaces, unshakable love. I believed success was meant to be shared, and I wanted her to have a piece of mine. But now, lying motionless in the darkness of my own body, I could clearly see the small signs I had once chosen to overlook. The way her gaze lingered on Daniel when he praised her, the inside jokes between them that I didn't understand, the overlapping messages in his phone history that made me tilt my head but never dare to ask out loud. Don't be suspicious, I told myself. It's just Valeria. She jokes with everyone. Besides, Daniel isn't that kind of man. How many times had I spun that excuse for myself? I remembered one night after a downtown fundraiser. The three of us came home, drank wine by the fireplace. I had changed into pajamas, curled up on the sofa with a thin blanket, tired but content. Valeria was still in her evening gown, hair perfect, lips glossy, sitting on the floor at Daniel's feet, laughing a little too loudly at one of his jokes, her hand brushing something along his pant leg. I remember thinking, she's trying too hard tonight. I said nothing, But Daniel's laughter that night didn't sound the same anymore. My mother used to say, betrayal always begins with silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of being seen, being heard, being noticed. Something had changed. You just don't realize it until you're standing on the other side of the wreckage. Now, in this cold hospital room, I was standing on the other side, and I could see everything clearly. Day 20. The nurses were my spies, even though they had no idea. They gossiped while changing my sheets, as if I couldn't hear a thing. "Did you see the Instagram post?" Nurse Ashley whispered to Nurse Sophia. "The one from the best friend," Sophia snorted. "Disgusting." "She's wearing the patient's wedding dress, Sophia. I swear to God." She posted a story titled, "Welcome Home Celebration," and today she's twirling around in the room next door. Her mother-in-law said it was Elena's wedding dress. My wedding dress. Spanish imported lace. The dress I wore when I promised to love him for the rest of my life. Now it was his mistress's costume, worn in my house, while I lay dying in a hospital bed. "What about the baby?" Sophia asked. "Daniel already changed the birth certificate," Ashley whispered. Elena wanted the name Esperanza. Hope. Daniel filed the paperwork yesterday. The baby's name is Mia now. Mia, mine, possessive. They weren't just killing me. They were erasing me. They were rewriting my life with a new version, even my child's name. But then Ashley said something that made my heart almost stop. "What about the other baby?" "Shh," Sophia whispered. "We're not supposed to know about that. Dr. Ortega is keeping it quiet to protect the child." The other one? My mind spun. The ultrasounds had always shown one baby, one heartbeat. Had I missed something? Day 25. Dr. Ortega stood beside my bed, his voice low and furious. "I can't do that, Carmen. It's illegal." A pause. "I don't care about your private adoption arrangement." The patient delivered identical twins. A concealed twin. It happens, even if it's rare. The second baby is in the special neonatal care unit. Twins. I had 2 daughters. Mr. Moreno is the father. He has rights. A pause. He signed those rights away? In exchange for what? Cash? The silence afterward was so heavy it could have crushed the building. "Fine," Ortega snapped. "But I need paperwork, proper paperwork. I am not handing a baby to strangers in a parking lot." He hung up and sighed, looking down at me. "I'm so sorry, Elena. I don't know how to stop them." "I do," I screamed inside the silence of my skull. "Just wake me up." When the nurse left, the static from the baby monitor crackled again. Then Valeria's voice came through, clear, close enough that I could picture the room. "Wait a second," she said with a soft laugh. "Let me take one more." There was the small click of a phone camera, then the sound of her turning, fabric whispering against skin. "I'm just trying it on," Valeria said, her voice sickeningly sweet, "to see if it fits, so it doesn't go to waste." "Stand still," Carmen said. "Let me look." A brief silence, like she was appraising. "This waist needs taking in," Carmen continued, decisive. "Elna was too thin. On you it looks lifeless. Cut it down, make it tighter. That'll look better." I heard the scratch of a pen on paper, like notes being taken. "What do you think?" Valeria asked, her voice eager. "Perfect," Carmen replied. "Almost like it was made for you." I wanted to disappear. Not from the hospital room, from the memory of the day I wore that dress. The day I believed I was loved, chosen, singular. "I'll just post one," Valeria said, whispering like she was sharing a secret. "Just to mark a new beginning." A new beginning. While I was still breathing, I realized they weren't waiting for me to die to replace me. Maybe they'd planned this day a long time ago. The hospital room door opened again. Not a doctor, not a nurse. Familiar footsteps approached, slow, confident, without hesitation. Daniel. And he didn't come alone. "Come in," he said softly, like he was afraid of disturbing something. "She can't hear." I recognized the perfume before I heard the voice. Sweet, sharp, out of place in the smell of antiseptic. Valeria stepped inside. "Why do you even want to see her?" Daniel whispered. His voice lowered, almost tender. Valeria laughed softly. The laugh I once thought was bright, now sounding like a razor on glass. She reached out, slowly placing her hand on my stomach, right where I had carried my 2 children. Red polished fingers brushed the thin blanket, like she was touching something that already belonged to her. "Thank you, Elena," she said, her voice honeyed with poison. "Thank you for carrying our baby. Thank you for the house, for that beautiful wedding dress, and for stepping aside at just the right time." Daniel kissed Valeria lightly on the hair. "3 more days and it's over. You'll be Mrs. Moreno officially." "You know," Valeria went on, her hand still on my stomach, pressing harder. "I didn't want to hurt her. I think she's stronger than I thought, still holding on, somehow." "No," Daniel said. "She let go, a long time ago." Then I heard the beep change. Not loud, not an alarm. Just a beat dragged slightly slower. Daniel leaned down toward the monitor panel. His hand blocked the small lights. "This thing is too noisy," he muttered. "She doesn't need it anymore." I panicked in silence. My heart raced. I couldn't breathe. The door opened. "What are you doing?" A nurse's voice cut in, urgent, alert. Daniel startled. I thought she needed more quiet." The nurse moved closer to the panel. I heard the click as she turned the machine back on. My heart rate climbed on the screen. "This equipment is not to be turned off," the nurse said, her voice turning cold. "Not even by family." Daniel forced a smile. "I was just trying to help." They stood there for a few more seconds, looking at me like a statue in a museum, a relic of the past they were about to bury, under the nurse's sharp, watchful gaze. Then they left, hand in hand, leaving the room sunk in darkness and heavy with perfume. I lay there, unable to cry, unable to scream, unable to move. Day 29. 11 p.m. They will come at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. That is the deadline, the 30-day mark, the moment the insurance pays out and the ethical withdrawal of life support can be signed. I had 11 hours left to live. I poured everything, every memory, every surge of rage, every last thread of love for the daughter stolen from me, into the index finger of my right hand. "Wake up," I ordered. Nothing happened. "Get out of my way, you bastards, for Esperanza, for the hidden one." I thought of Valeria wearing my dress. I thought of Carmen selling my child. I thought of Daniel checking his phone while I was dying on the operating table. Rage heated my blood. It flowed down my shoulder, through my elbow, into my wrist. My finger twitched. It was tiny. A faint tremor. But Nurse Ashley was there, adjusting my IV line. She froze. "Did the patient—" I did it again. A clear, deliberate tap against the bedsheet. Ashley gasped. "Elena, can you hear me?" I couldn't speak. The breathing tube was still in my throat, but I focused on my eyelids, heavy as lead doors. Open. Slowly, painfully, my eyes cracked open. Blinding light, but I saw her. "Oh my God," Ashley whispered. She hit the call button. "Dr. Ortega, now! Room 304, she's awake." The next hour passed like a dream of tests, lights, and disbelief. They pulled the breathing tube out. My throat felt scraped raw with sandpaper. "Elena," Dr. Ortega said, shining a light into my eyes. "Blink twice if you understand me." I blinked twice. "Can you speak?" I swallowed, the pain burning. I needed to say one word. The only word that mattered, the babies. Dr. Ortega exhaled, as if he'd been holding his breath for a month. "They're safe, for now. But your husband, he has plans for tomorrow." "I know," I rasped. "I heard everything." I looked at the doctor, and I saw it register. He realized I knew about the money, about the dress, about selling the twin. "Find a lawyer," I whispered. "And the police too. Please." By 4 in the morning, my room had completely changed. My parents, sobbing and shaking, sat beside me, gripping my hand as if their grasp alone was keeping me tethered to the earth. A lawyer, Ms. Castillo, sat with a notebook, recording my hoarse statement. "We need to catch them in the act," Ms. Castillo said, her eyes burning. "If we confront them now, they'll find a way to justify themselves. But if they sign papers to end your life, that's premeditated murder. If they sign papers to sell the baby, that's human trafficking." "Let them come," I said, my voice so cold it surprised even me. "Let them think they've won." Day 30, 10 a.m. The room was prepared. I lay flat on my back, eyes closed, pretending to be in a coma. The monitors were turned down low. My parents were hiding in the adjacent room. The lawyer and 2 police officers were watching the live feed from the security camera in the guard office. The door opened. "Finally!" Carmen's voice rang out. "Let's get this over with quickly. The notary is waiting downstairs." "It feels strange knowing she's going to stop," Daniel said. "She left for God 30 days ago, Daniel." "Don't be weak," Carmen snapped. "Think about the money. Think about Valeria." "I am thinking about Valeria. She's waiting in the car with a baby seat because of the other matter." "Good. The buyer will meet us at noon." They stepped up to the bed. I felt Daniel's presence. He no longer smelled like my husband. He smelled like a stranger. "Goodbye, Elena," he said. No emotion, just a farewell. "Doctor," Carmen called out, "we're ready to sign the directive. Pull the plug." I waited until I heard the pen scratch against paper. I waited until the signatures were complete, the legal seal of my death sentence. Then I opened my eyes. I said nothing, didn't scream, didn't thrash, didn't call anyone's name. My eyes opened very slowly, as if it were just a final reflex before everything shut down. I stared straight at Daniel. 30 seconds passed. He froze. His breathing went ragged. His lips moved, but no sound came out. He dropped the clipboard. It clattered to the floor. "Daniel?" Carmen snapped irritably. "What are you doing?" Daniel stammered, pointing a trembling finger at me. She's looking at me." Carmen turned around, her face drained in absolute horror. Every drop of blood seemed to leave it. "No, impossible," she whispered. "She can't be awake." I pulled the oxygen mask off my face. I smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was a predator's smile. "Hello, my love," I rasped. "Did I mess up the schedule?" "Impossible," Carmen whispered. This is impossible." "What's impossible?" I said, my voice growing stronger. "Is how you thought you could sell my daughter and not pay for it." I don't know what you're talking about," Carmen stuttered, backing toward the door. "Don't lie, Carmen. It doesn't suit you. I heard about the insurance. I heard about Valeria," Daniel gasped. "Elena, sweetheart, I can explain. It was grief. I lost my mind from grief." "Grief?" I scoffed, a dry, bitter laugh. "Were you grieving when you let your mistress wear my wedding dress? Were you grieving when you negotiated the price for my second daughter?" The bathroom door burst open. My father looked like he wanted to kill someone. My mother was sobbing uncontrollably. At the same time, the main door flew open. Police officers entered, followed by Ms. Castillo. "Daniel Moreno, Carmen Moreno," the officer announced. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and human trafficking." Carmen screamed, a shrill animal sound. She lunged for the door, but a police officer grabbed her arm. She fought, cursed, the polished elegance of a high society woman completely stripped away. Daniel collapsed to his knees. He looked at me, tears streaming down his face. "Elena, please." "Don't speak to me," I said. "When I was dying, you didn't ask if I was okay. Don't beg for my mercy now." 6 months later, with police raids sweeping through the network, the entire child trafficking ring was taken down, and Daniel's trial followed. The evidence was overwhelming. audio recordings, signed documents, testimony from Dr. Ortega and the nurses. I sat in the front row beside my parents. I wore a red dress, bold, radiant, and alive. I watched as the judge read the verdicts. Carmen, 20 years, human trafficking and conspiracy. Daniel, 15 years, complicity and fraud. Valeria, 5 years, aiding and abetting. They lost everything. The house was sold to cover my medical bills and my daughter's trust funds. The life insurance policy they had coveted was voided, but the company compensated me for fraud. I changed the locks. I burned the wedding dress in the backyard, watching the lace curl into black ash. It felt like a cleansing. I named my daughters Esperanza for the hope I clung to in the darkness, Milagros for the miracle twin they tried to erase. 6 months later, I sat on a stone bench in South Point Park. Purple Royal Poinciana blossoms overhead. The air was clean. Esperanza and Milagros slept peacefully in their double stroller. My parents walked toward us with ice cream in their hands, smiling like people who had survived a storm. I took a deep breath, feeling fresh air fill my lungs. No machines, no tubes, no fear. Life had returned to calm. The house had new locks. Daniel, Carmen, and Valeria were paying their price behind cold gray walls. Everything seemed finished. Then, last week, a letter arrived. No return address, no stamp, just a folded white sheet slipped into my mailbox in the dead of night. Inside was a single typed sentence. No fingerprints, no signature. Not everyone born gets to grow up with their mother. I read that line over and over under the kitchen light, then quietly folded it and placed it in a drawer with a copy of the verdict. Last night, around 2 a.m., my phone rang once and went silent. I picked up, only heavy, slow breathing on the other end. No words, no caller ID. I let it stay that way for nearly a minute, then calmly said, "I'm listening." The line stayed silent for a few more seconds, then disconnected. I set the phone down, not shaking, not afraid, just smiling in the dark. They think they can scare me again. They forgot I lay motionless for 30 days, hearing every one of their most vicious whispers, and still survived. If they want to keep playing this game, I'm ready. I'm no longer the Elena I used to be, the blindly trusting wife, the patient daughter-in-law, the weak mother begging for mercy. I am Elena who died once, who heard everything, and who came back stronger than any nightmare they could create. They want a war? I'll show them what a mother truly protecting her children looks like. I leaned back on the stone bench, closed my eyes, and let the warm sunlight wash over my face. This time, not out of fear, but because I know, if the darkness returns, I will be the one holding the flame. And no one gets to decide when my story ends.